What's up, cycling fans, and welcome to another race report, this time coming to you from the Kitchener Twilight Grand Prix Criterium. New race, same story as usual. Once again, I paid the price for my bad positioning, but we'll skip all the doom and gloom like in many of my other race reports, and talk about some other things that occurred during this race. So Cat 4 crit races are basically like Zwift races, of everybody going full gas right from the gun. So of course, if you don't get clipped in right away, like I did, you quickly find yourself moving towards the back of the group. Of course, then you get stuck behind riders grabbing way too much brake for this first corner, which goes into a slight uphill, which forced me to sprint up over 900 watts. In order to stick with the group, big efforts like that became a common occurrence during the first couple laps of the race, because I went through all the corners a little too tentatively, let the riders around me dictate the line I took, rather than taking the line I wanted to, which in my mind would have been the much faster line. So in the end, I ended up taking most of the corners either way too wide or had to grab too much brake, and in the end I just burnt through too many matches too early in the race. Eventually I did get the lines dialed in, but that was much too late, as I had already been dropped from the lead group in the race. So we were just going around for the first lap. You're probably already yelling at the computer as to why I'm coasting so much. But at this point early in the race, I was really just trying to recover in as many spots as possible. So as we finish up this first lap, we're just going to jump ahead a little bit in the race. Here we just have a little crash early in the race. The course caused a bit of a gap to open and required another big effort to try to stay in contact. Jumping ahead again, we are at about 7 or 8 minutes into the race now. It was at this moment that I realized a gap had been allowed to open between a small group and the main field up the road. Of course, at this point I had a decision to make. Did I think I could bridge that gap, or was I just going to hang out in this group? In the end, I decided to not attempt to bridge. I was already feeling it in the early efforts in the race, and I figured that if I did make it to that group, I would just blow up anyways, and rather than finishing the race in this group, I would just DNF instead. Again, jumping much later into the race, this clip's here, mostly because it's one of the few times that I felt I actually did good in the race. Took a good line for that first corner, moved up along the outside of the group as we approached the last corner on the course, and then again took a nice line for that corner, which allowed me to not have to put as much effort into staying with the group. This is just me accidentally spitting on this guy behind me. Oops. So I spent most of the remainder of the race basically tail gunning in this small group that we formed up. But there were a couple times I decided to pull through to the front. And honestly, once I got to ride at a steady pace on the front of the group, it felt so much better than the surges of slowing down for a corner, sprinting back up to speed, just being able to ride a steady pace, even though I was I think I was going slower than most guys wanted to be going. This just felt so much better. Again, this was a bit of recovery. And even though I did still have to put out a decent number of watts out of this corner, it was a much shorter effort in order to keep this guy's wheel. Real good example there of where you should be in the race. Sketchy moment right here. Heading into the last turn, that guy grabs way too much brake, pushes his teammate off the road, and they both crash into the curb right there. At this moment, the leader of the race and eventual winner whips past us, and of course our group is not happy to just let him go by, so we decide we have to grab onto his wheel and chase, so we get a bit of an acceleration here. With only about 3 laps left in the race. At this point, I'm about ready to blow up and just limp home to the rest of the race. Which in the end, although I did miss making the lead group, I was quite satisfied with my performance. The last 2 years I got pulled from this race, so my initial goal was to finish this race, which I successfully did. Of course, at the time when I realized our group had been dropped from the lead of the race, there was an initial feeling of defeat, but along with that, I did not want to give up at that time, again with my goal being to finish this race. In the end, I felt satisfied. I felt like I had put out a good effort that was a good representation of myself, despite not making the lead group, as I was saying. Finally showed a bit of fighting spirit that had lacked in many of the other races that I got dropped in. Rather than giving up, I continued to work hard through the end of the race. And of course, well on course, I thought, that group that got off the road was probably like 25 riders, and we were racing for 30th back here. But once I checked the results at the end of the race, it turned out that 9th place in the E4 category was actually in our group. If I had known that while racing, I'd like to think I might have given a bit more effort for these last couple laps, but honestly, I was dead. That's why I'm just letting this gap open off the back. There was not much left in the tank, so at this time I was content to roll into the finish. In the end, I finished 13th in the Elite 4 category and 26 overall. I realize those aren't results to write home about, but with most of my record being DNFs, it was finally nice to have a number up on the board. There you have it, guys. We're just gonna roll around for, I believe, the final lap now. So if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you got any questions or comments, maybe some helpful advice, why don't you just throw it down in the comments down below. Of course, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more videos like it, make sure you subscribe to the Wannabe Racer for more regular content. As always, I am the Wannabe Racer, and until the next one, cycling fans, just insert some catchy outro here and believe that I said it. Peace.